Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 8th day of July 2025. We're speaking about the proposed amendment to the Constitution and now already passed by the National Assembly, awaiting the feedback from the Senate on amending the Constitution to introduce the National Government Constituency Fund, the Senate Oversight Fund, and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. And let me hear from Fred first, because he's been quiet all this time. Your thoughts about this and how important it is, because a Member of Parliament for Tetu tells us that if you go to the constituencies, the only visible development is by CDF. And of course, we'll understand why. When you look at the counties, he says that you don't see as much. Never mind that they have up to about, is it 30% of resources on development? Usually, they're lucky to meet that requirement. Sometimes they don't. What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Sam. First of all, let me remind Kenyans that this issue of funds, if you recall, all the proponents of constitutional amendment, right from Punguza Mizigo, BBI, and then recently NADCO, they all proposed some of these funds. In fact, the latest in the NADCO, the entrenchment of funds, the Senate Oversight Fund was there, NG-CDF was there, NGAF was there, as funds that people thought are so important in changing people's lives, and therefore they were to be entrenched in the Constitution so that they continue doing that job. But truth be told, the work that the National Constituency Development Fund has done is visible, and people have seen that. However, there have been arguments about its administration. And that's why in 2024, when the High Court made a determination that the way this fund has been administered, it inadvertently created a quasi third-tier government, because the system of governance was that we have two levels, the national government and the county government. And to me, I think the argument would be, how do we ensure the prudent use of these funds to the maximum, to the effect that it helps the people that it's supposed to help? Where are the people of Kenya? The people of Kenya are in the villages and the counties and in the wards. That is where the development is needed most. Now, go back to the functions of these two houses. Senator Sigei and Senator Manzo sit in the Senate. They are participants of lawmaking. They represent the interests of their counties. And there's oversight the county funds. Honorable Wandeto sits in the National Assembly. He represents the interests of the people of the constituency, special interest group, and address the issues of concern at that level. But collectively, their roles are representation, oversight, and legislation. So if you look at all these things, I would appreciate an argument that will give people an opportunity to make a decision. Whatever happens in the Senate, whether that bill is passed and subjected to the people for a final decision-making through referendum, what is important is how that fund will be prudently used and how that fund will change lives. Today, if we argue that let's do away with the fund because it's tokenism to the members of parliament or to the senators, we shall be doing a disservice to the public that have continuously benefited from it. We have seen school fees, we have seen bursaries, we have seen buildings being, schools being constructed, and I think that's a good thing. But look, Sam, why is it that this argument is coming up? The Senate and the National Assembly, as Wandeto was saying off the camera, that there is likely to be existing supremacy battles. You know, we needed to have decided that between these two houses, do we have an upper house and a lower house? Is there an house that has veto powers over the other or of some decisions? That has not happened. And that's why you see some of these battles are coming up. I suggest that let these amendments proceed, but let it find its way at the people to make a decision. Because even if you look at it keenly, some of the functions that these funds are going to do are likely to affect the functions of parliament. They're likely to affect the objects and principles of structured devolved systems. And therefore, by virtue of
how will they affect the structure of devolved?
Because if the senators argue that the proponents of the Senate Oversight Fund argue that they'll use this fund to oversight the functions that devolved government, where how the money is being used, the development there, which to me I don't agree, then ultimately it touches on the devolved system. And therefore, it requires that the people must take a decision in Article 255 referendum. So my argument is that the funds are good.
And what do you think the people would say?
Pardon?
What do you think the people would say in a referendum?
I wouldn't speak for the people. But when subjected to the people will make that decision at that time. Today, as it speaks, one of the funds that the people agree with that is being administered is the National Government Constituency Development Fund. That we have seen its effect.
No, I'm asking that because...
why do a referendum on the obvious?
During the conversations at the National Assembly, they say that from the public participation, I was corrected yesterday, it's not 98%, but 98.5% of Kenyans gave positive feedback in agreement. But anyway...
you know why that can be argued to be true? Is because the members of parliament are the people who address the issue of concern to the people that they represent. And they are in contact with them. If the people they represent have shown that this money is working for them, then I suggest that subject to the referendum and let the people make a final decision. For the issue of Senate Oversight Fund, I'm a bit scared because how would they administer it? How would they conduct the oversight at the county level? What will they be doing in the Senate then if they have to go to the county to oversight that revenue that the county has been given and the function? What will the MCAs be doing if that money is given to them? I think it will be fair to discuss that and allow the people to make a decision. Okay.
All right. Now, J.B. Muturi, the former Speaker and former Attorney General, says that lobbyists will argue that NG-CDF brings development to the grassroots, so does devolution, only with transparency, public participation and professional procurement. If the real concern is equitable development, Parliament should increase county allocations, strengthen county procurement oversight, and punish governors who steal. Short-circuiting the Constitution is not development, it is daylight robbery in the name of the poor. Mheshimiwa Ndeto, let me come back to you before Senator Sigei. So as you introduce this fund and you say it will be a percentage of the national government kitty, so the Senate will be utilizing resources as a percentage of the share of revenue of the national government to oversight counties. Why aren't you able to create a fund within the budget of Parliament, rather? Because if this year you're getting 47 billion shillings, why not create a fund or a service there without having to go to the Constitution?
I think the wisdom behind entrenching these three funds in the Constitution is because, you know, they've always been, I mean, especially CDF has been a subject of numerous litigation. And I think it's important that
Senate oversight.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Senate oversight. And because we do not also know whether the same, busybody lobbyists who are always in court trying to pull this country backward.
They're Kenyans.
I mean, sometimes they are busy.
No, they're Kenyans.
Foreign funded, most of them foreign funded.
Kenyans of an interest in their country.
Most of them foreign funded and who do not wish to see this country progress. Otherwise, their donor funds would dry out. It is important that we entrench this fund in the Constitution. Otherwise, these same busybodies, Manzo, the little money that we are going to give you to oversight the Makueni and here to oversight Bomet will again be subject of court cases. Yeah, so it's important that we but
before you move away from that, Senator Sigei does not oversight Bomet as a person. It is through the corporate entity called the Senate of Kenya, isn't it?
Yes.
So when you individualize those resources, what are you doing?
I mean, so that he's able to create, remember, he has an oversight role as a legislator, not as a Senate.
And he does it as part of the Senate.
He does it as part of the Senate.
Just like you oversight the national government, not as Mheshimiwa Ndeto,
yes,
but as part of the National Assembly, no?
Yeah, but it is important that there is a defined allocation. Remember, the other reason why we are doing this, the way we are doing it, is so that there's also some sort of equitable distribution of these resources. So the work going on in Bomet is the same sort of work going on in Makueni, and so that there is even supposed to be a secretariat that again can guide some of these senators into the sort of programs and projects that they should be doing to basically improve governance. And we are saying it is the Senate that is going to do it, but instead of the Senate as
if you think that the Senate requires resources, why not allocate them at the point of sharing the resources?
And why not create a Senate oversight fund?
No. Please answer my question.
I'm just trying to say...
Why not? I mean, so how much do you estimate the Senate oversight fund will be worth?
Well, I don't have the actual numbers off my head, but I think it's 0.0.
It doesn't actually give. I'm just trying.
The amendment doesn't say.
It doesn't give the percentage of it.
For the sake of this discussion, let's assume it's 1 billion shillings.
Yeah.
In Parliament this year has been allocated 47 billion shillings.
Yes.
Why not just allocate another 1 billion to 48 billion shillings? And so this is earmarked for the Senate.
Because we want to ring-fence that fund.
No, you can ring-fence it. You're a parliamentary service commission.
You could argue the same thing.
You're an independent commission, aren't you?
You could argue the same way, Sam, to say the 56 or so billion that is going to CDF. Why not just look at, say, how much goes to electricity and give it to the Ministry of Energy? How much goes to education and give it to the Ministry of Education? How much goes to this and give it to...
So why not do it? Why not do it?
Because we are trying to create efficiency in terms of how these resources are used. Today, Sam, I can tell you, and let me give a very polite warning to my two senators here. Not a warning, really. Let me just maybe call it. They are my seniors. Carry on. They are my seniors. Let me tell you. The day you remove this fund in this country, so that because we can spend time here, splitting hairs. The day you remove this fund in this country, my two senators, is the day you can easily find yourself being an enemy of the people
sure.
on the ground. And I'm not trying to kind of intimidate them or blackmail them into supporting the amendment. But I can tell you, the day some of our parents have no school fees, have no bursary to take their kids back to school, the day we start seeing our schools and whatever rotting the way they used to rot, because a member of parliament has to go and beg and plead with the government to give him resources, is the day that I can tell you the bulk of senators may end up becoming enemies.
That's a very interesting answer, Mheshimiwa Wandeto, because I asked you about Senate Oversight Fund. You responded to me by threatening them on NG-CDF. So clearly I can see the intention here is not the Senate Oversight Fund. The intention is the NG-CDF. Senator Sige, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to say that of course, I think my thoughts have now been convoluted by the fact that there is already a threat that has been issued.
Let's treat it as a caution, maybe?
It's a caution, not I extracted my word warning. It's a caution.
Which is okay, and it's expected, especially when you are dealing with matters public and public interest. What I wanted to say, Sam, is this. Oversight in itself, as Wandeto was trying to explain, cannot ordinarily be done at the county level without resources, for instance, such that when I said earlier on that Senate has existed for the last 15 years, it does not mean that those who've been in those offices have not been conducting oversight. They've been doing it. And when I look at the text under 204A and 204B that seeks to introduce the Oversight Fund is saying that the Senate Oversight Fund is established for the purpose of ensuring that the Senate is adequately resourced and empowered to perform its oversight functions. That's the text of this constitutional amendment. Yeah. And it's, of course, not similar with the one for the National Assembly because it seeks to run through. The amount is yet to be known. The percentage is yet to be known. It says that Parliament shall enact legislation to make further provision for the operationalization of this article that has been amended. All will mean, therefore, that you have it as a text in the Constitution. Yeah. It is the National Assembly that will decide.
To pass a law.
To pass a law. So they can decide whether to do it or not.
And by the way, if that legislation is eventually passed, should it come to the Senate?
Yes. Yes, I think it will. Yes, it will. Yes. But the issue is...
which one? Because I would imagine they'll be different. The law creating NG-CDF, the law creating GAF, the law creating Senate Oversight Fund?
Yeah, they will all have originated from the National Assembly.
Yeah.
They'll have to come to the Senate.
Whether you think so?
Yes.
Did the national government, did the NG-CDF amendment come to the Senate? The one of 2023?
Which one? The one that was declared by the courts that it was in a... No, it didn't. And it is one of the 27 legislations that we had taken to court, where we had said...
Because a bill that must come to the Senate is one that touches on counties, right?
Yes.
Will the NG-CDF really touch on counties?
Yes.
How?
Service provision that goes down to the grassroots.
No, that's
involved. No, that was our argument.
Yeah.
Though
Okay.
in the Supreme Court,
yeah.
we lost because the courts declared that they didn't have to come to the Senate.
Yeah.
Other than, I think, the only 3 legislations.
And the one on Senate Oversight Fund, is there any reason why it would come to the Senate? Because if the Constitution says touches on counties,
yes.
The Senate Oversight Fund is a fund carved out of the national government share of revenue. Still looks like it would...
Some of these
yes,
are constitutional amendment. It must be addressed by the 2 houses.
No, I'm saying
the law,
if this becomes part of the Constitution,
yes.
and now you have to come up with a statute to entrench the Senate Oversight Fund, would the National Assembly have to refer it to your house now that doesn't necessarily touch on counties? It just touches on a fund created for you to oversight the counties.
Yes, Sam, it will have to. And that is why I said that we also have got more concerns as regards the provisions of Article 110.3 on what the Constitution termed as concurrence by the 2 speakers of the House. Even if for an argument's sake, let's say, look, I am aware this bill has already been introduced.
Manzo and Sigei, how would you advise your Senate, your House, to reject this bill or to agree with it? Starting with you, Senator Manzo.
Well, as I've said, the Constitution already provides the answer. That this sort of change of the Constitution can only be best when it goes to referendum.
So you have to make a decision as a House.
Yeah, this is a matter which must go to the referendum, to the people.
For sure. But it only goes to the referendum if you agree with it. No. And you require 46 senators to agree with it.
You know it has 2 routes. You see, after if it passes, it goes to the president and he may refer it to referendum. He should still refer it to referendum. If he rejects it, it can still go straight to referendum as a referendum question to the people.
How so?
You know, when you frame a referendum question, it's agreed that it goes to the people, and the most appropriate time when you look at the current situation in the country, and the financial situation, is during the next election. It becomes one of the ballots. I
thought if it's popular initiative, that's the one that even if the House rejects... Okay, this is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. If you come up with a bill that does not affect Article 255, and it's by popular initiative, meaning it has gone through the process of the counties and it gets to Parliament, if either of the House passes it and the other one rejects, it goes straight to referendum, back to the people, right?
Not necessarily. You see, a popular initiative is like what they did. They did public participation, meaning that the people have agreed with it. So it can as well be sent straight away to referendum by agreement, you know, by law, by operation of law. Because even if we pass it, it's going to face challenges back to court. And that's where it will end up being.
Now, if a draft bill has been approved by, this is the popular initiative, if a draft bill has been approved, case in point, BBI, Punguza Mizigo and the like, if a bill has been approved by majority of the county assemblies, it shall be introduced in Parliament without delay. And bill under this article is passed by Parliament if supported by majority of the members of each House. If Parliament passes the bill, it shall be submitted to the President for assent in accordance with 2, 5, 6, 4, and 5. If either House of Parliament fails to pass the bill, or the bill relates to a matter specified in 2551, the proposed amendment shall be submitted to the people in a referendum. So a popular initiative that is stuck because one of the houses has rejected it goes to a referendum. But a parliamentary initiative where National Assembly has passed it, Senate has rejected, I would imagine it collapses there, no? There's no route to the people unless you approve it.
Well, you know, once it collapses as Senate, it can go back as a popular initiative, because this has been...
Which is a totally different process.
Yes, this has been proposed as a popular matter within the people. You've heard, wanted to talk about, you know, when they did the public persuasion, we saw what happened. And I know it's a very popular matter within the people.
Okay.
But it has to be entrenched in the Constitution. There are only two ways of entrenching into the Constitution. Either through the House. The question is, does it qualify to be entrenched through the House? The courts have already said no.
Okay.
It must go to referendum.
The easier way for Manzo to make a decision is very simple. Yeah. Maybe actually he should not worry about all the things that he's worrying about. The day Sigei and Manzo, this thing comes to, before this thing comes to Senate for voting, just please go to Makueni and Bomet and just ask the people, how would you like me to vote?
This is a constitutional responsibility.
Yeah. Just ask them, how would you like me to vote? And you will come with the answer. If all the 6 or 7 senators do that...
Are you telling me to go and listen to the ground?
Just go and talk to the people.
Oh, you got the...
I just wanted to say something.
Oh, Senator.
Yes. I think
how would you advise... Your reading of 255, 256 and 257, how would you advise the senators?
I think... the issue here, in my view, is, you know, as I said earlier, and that is the constitutional text, the National Assembly are the ones tasked with enacting law. Senator Sigei and Senator Manzo here, they know they are participants of lawmaking, and that's why you notice Wandeto is telling them that we'll enact, but you participate in our enactment. So it appears it is historical battle that the draft of the Constitution did not anticipate. However, here we are. This bill, it is important that the people have a say. Whether it is a popular initiative or a parliamentary initiative. As it is today, it is through Parliament. But assuming it collapses at the Senate, the best approach would be, what are the people saying about it? Because we have also seen...
But if it collapses at the Senate, isn't that the end of the story?
It collapses at the Senate. Remember, the Senate conducted, the National Assembly conducted public participation. The Senate ideally is supposed to also conduct public participation. But we have no Public Participation Act that guides the responsible authority actors in how to conduct this public participation.
And therefore, I'm asking you,
it must not be efficient as it is.
If it collapses at the Senate, isn't that the end of the story?
In my view, it shouldn't. Because we should
not
go
about
back.
What should. We're talking about this process. The process is on.
If it collapses at the Senate as it is today, that could be the end of the story. But look, what is the benefit of this fund to the majority? What are the majority saying? Let's go back and ask the people, as Senator Manzo is saying, the best cure is subject this bill to the people, let the people have their final participation by voting as a 7th ballot in the
Interesting. Senator Sigei, your closing word on this.
Yes.
Especially your reading of all those articles.
Yes, this is, you're right, Sam. I just want to paraphrase the provisions of Article 257(10). This is on amendment by popular initiative. If either House of Parliament fails to pass the bill, that speaks to what you said, whether the National Assembly have passed or the Senate will decline to pass. If either House of Parliament fails to pass the bill, or the bill relates to a matter specified in Article 255(1), the proposed amendment shall be submitted to the people in a referendum.
Correct.
That is the provision that will trigger.
But that's for popular initiative, not for parliamentary.
Yes. I just picked that specifically because whether we are arguing that this will go to referendum or not, it is guided by that particular article in the course of popular initiative. In the case of...
but the current one is not.
Yes. In the case of a parliamentary initiative, that is under Article 256. 256(3). says, after Parliament passes a bill to amend this Constitution, the speakers of the two houses of Parliament shall jointly submit to the President. The assumption here is that Parliament as a house, both the National Assembly and the Senate, will have passed with the threshold that is required. Then 255...
If they don't both agree, then there's no submission. There's no transmission.
It can't. Yes,
I
it can't.
think it collapses. The bill
Yes,
collapses.
because it will require now the two speakers to make a submission.
I think there's even a term limit as to when
Yes.
it can be reintroduced.
And
There's a term limit,
well,
2 years or something.
Okay.
if that were then to be the case,
Yeah.
I mean, the Constitution will have guided on what happens in the event that there is a failure in communication. But then let me speak to this situation we are in now.
Yeah.
You know, some wisdom is realizing that not every problem requires a sprint. Some demand a walk. Others will require a pause.
Yep.
I believe the situation we are in requires a pause, particularly because I have just been reading part of the interlocutory finding by the court on the Katiba Institute case that injuncted submission of this bill to the president for assent upon its passage by Parliament. The assumption, of course, the court made is that it will be passed the way it has been passed. It is yet to get to the Senate. So there is already an existing litigation on this matter. As to whether or not we'll pass it for academic purpose, then we'll still have to deal with the matter in court because an order has already been issued. So
But what's your advice to
the wisdom that we are in now is that we appreciate the importance of CDF, and actually we need this fund because of what it is doing for our people. We equally, as an oversight entity, whether individually as a senator or wholesomely as a house, we need to be resourced to conduct oversight. Oversight is not necessarily going to the ground. You know, we need to sensitize our people to understand that the role of Senate is oversight, legislation, and representation. It doesn't happen without a fund. For instance, it doesn't happen. You cannot convene a baraza, you cannot convene a public participation process without funding it.
And
now, it will then call upon a pause, as I said, so that we don't pass it for the sake of passing it. We don't reject it for the sake of rejecting it. Senator Manso said that there has been no proper consultation in the process, including the institution.
So what is your advice to the Senate?
My advice to the Senate is that this bill will come. We will have got two things to do. One, we've not been injuncted, and Parliament cannot be injuncted, meaning we will proceed with it, right?
Yeah.
But then again, we should be alive to the fact that there is this order that says the president should not assent to it until issues that have been raised are dealt with.
Okay,
But so, you need to restrict yourself.
What I'm asking is
the actions of Senate. I think that's what some
have a decision to make.
Yeah, to make.
What will you advise the Senate to do? To reject or to agree with it?
We will not advise the Senate to reject, nor will we advise the Senate to approve of it. We will place it in the floor of the House. Members will debate pro and against, and we will finally subject it to a vote, the way we would do things. So it will then be a subject that the entire Senate will do.
I hear you. You know, Senate has a very important decision to make this week. The impeachment of
the Bomet people can hear him.
The governor of Isiolo.
Exactly.
I'm just wondering, I mean, a decision has to be made, and we have talked about the merits of this bill. We have talked about the dynamics.
The unfortunate thing, Sam, is this.
I hear you are restraining yourself.
Yes, the unfortunate thing again is this.
Good.
A constitutional amendment bill cannot be amended.
For sure, for sure.
If it were to be something that can be amended, then we would, as a matter of concern, bring out those other aspects that we feel as a Senate, it is time, it's a constitutional moment to amend.
Okay, I hear you saying you're rejecting it, but you don't want to say it. We'll wait to see how you vote. An important conversation. There is also a test on our constitutional provisions and what can be done and what cannot be done. Varying opinions right there. Now, yesterday, the country lost at least 11 people who were killed during demonstrations in 17 counties. That's what the papers are reporting, but also in our platform.